and this project called the EU will collapse. And so the time is not with them, so they are now desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. What's rational to you, what's rational to Angelo, what's rational to Danny, is not rational to irrational people. So they're going to keep on because they believe that they have the might, they believe they have the right, and they believe that they pulled it off before, so they can pull it off again. And they're using the same tools of empire. They just don't know that the empire tricks no longer work, because the world is wising up, the world is rising up, and we're looking at a new paradigm that excludes a hegemon. We're looking at a new global paradigm that is coming into the works, that is talking about a more fairer, more just world. And in the eyes of America, in the eyes of Britain, this is unacceptable. And I believe that this is going to push more escalation in Yemen, because they want Iran. This goes back to what you talked about in Europe, but it's tied back to Iran, because they are trying to weaken all of the legs of the resistance. And Yemen is one. And they believe that if they can weaken the legs of the resistance, right, they then, think about this, if they subdue Yemen, then they have a clear path to Iran. Then if they can subdue Iran, they have all of the gas pipelines that they want to lay. They have all of and they can control all of that. And at the same time, blunt China's Belt and Road in West Asia. And then this also gives them more power when they face China, and then double back on Russia. All of this is interconnected, but the world is wising up, and I believe that the empire has bitten off more than it can chew, and they're going to lose a couple of teeth in Ukraine and lose more than a couple of teeth in West Asia. So when they go against the dragon in Asia, they're going to be toothless. I believe so.
Well, one thing I want to jump in and say, because you made a very important point. The plan, the stated plan, is to dismember Iran's arc of resistance, its network of allies in the region. And we have watched them do that from October 7th onward. Especially Angelo and I, we warned that was exactly what they were setting up, and that is exactly what they did. They used that and the instability that they created across the region to wipe out Hezbollah's senior leadership. They have completely collapsed Syria. They have turned it into a breeding ground of extremism they can export across the region and around the world, and that is exactly what they're preparing to do. And we just heard Secretary of State Marco Rubio complaining about the Uyghur extremists that were literally going from China through Southeast Asia to Turkey to join ISIS and Al Qaeda, according to The Economist, and join a terrorist group still listed by his State Department as a foreign terrorist organization. So they're doing that. And if they get rid of Yemen, if they cut Yemen out, then Iran is completely isolated. That was always their plan. That is what they have said their plan is. And then think about what happens if you eliminate Iran from the region and there is no more arc of resistance. The U.S. exercises this tremendous power over the region. These nations no longer have any alternative. There are no dynamics in the region giving them any relief from U.S. coercion. And they can turn on and off the flow of hydrocarbons to China at will, and they can coerce these nations into lowering or raising energy prices, depending on what it is they're trying to do. So this is extremely dangerous, what they're doing, but it's also very obvious what they're doing. And this is something that's, if there's a deep state, that is the deep state agenda, and that is an agenda President Trump is eagerly, obediently serving right now as we speak. Angelo.
Yes, absolutely. Again, I think Iran is a very important piece, especially on the Belt and Road Initiative. It's a big supplier, also a big partner for both Russia and China. It's essential. So when you're hitting Iran, you are going to hit directly China. And then additional to that, I mean, that's we mentioned that they want to pin down Russian troops, because keep in mind that Russian resources, even though they outmatch all European countries when it comes to the military-industrial complex, but they have limited resources. That's a matter of demographics. They cannot fight a similar front than they have in Ukraine. that's why they tried to overextend Russia, and Russia didn't fall into the trap. So let's imagine if tomorrow there's a confrontation in the South China Sea, and there are several possible scenarios. We've seen that there was a coup in South Korea, and that was aimed at a direct confrontation between South Korea and North Korea. North Korea is de facto a Russian ally, and Russia and probably China would have to join that fight. So that's another extension too. And now we have also the Taiwan question. They're pushing the red lines, and we've seen these days. I don't know if you followed, but Duterte has been put in prison. That's not a coincidence. Duterte in the Philippines is the ex-president. He's the only opposition to Marcos, which Marcos, by the way, is a CIA asset. When his father was in power, he was working closely with the United States, and now he's shifting completely anti-China, and he's provoking China in the South China Sea. So you see, you have those alliances that are being prepared. What happened is that the US cannot actually be in Ukraine and fight on the South China Sea against China. So this is why they need this problem, the Ukrainian problem, to be EU problem. They are going to compensate in terms of increased military spending, and the US can focus on the South China Sea. If you really look at the budgets, remember Trump, they said Elon Musk too, we are going to lower the spending, there's lots of waste and so on. Well, just look at the program 2025. They are talking about doubling the US Navy. How are doubling the US Navy? It's I don't know, it's up to 2050, but it's $40 billion a year of increase just for the Navy. Why are they doing that? It's very simple. That's all related to China. So it's about blockade, organizing a blockade on choke points around the world, and having a much stronger presence in South China Sea. So it's all linked. The only thing is that people they don't do the homework. They see what they want to see, but they don't realize that it's just a different approach. We've said it over and over. The Democrats, what they wanted to do was to go straight with Russia, and then we'll take care of China. The Republicans, Trump, is from the Mersheimer school, who's actually trying to mitigate the relationship with Russia and focus exclusively on China, and then later go back to Russia, as Rasheed just mentioned before. So that's I think the topic will be. Once as this Ukrainian war is going to be handled by between the EU and Russia, and it's going to be it's going to be a butchery, and probably I don't see a confrontation, aggressive confrontation between the EU and Russia. They don't want to escalate. You see, it is about getting to the point of non-escalation to nuclear conflict, because when it becomes existential for Russia, we are talking about nuclear. So it is about really weakening Russia, and then the focus is going to be like really South China Sea, and this is why we slowly will have actually to really pay much closer attention to what is going to happen with China.
And we'll shift gears to talk about China specifically, but one last thing on Ukraine. People have to understand that fundamentally it is a U.S. proxy war against Russia using Ukraine, but also using Europe. And they're out of Ukrainians, so now they're trying to figure out a way to start feeding Europeans into the war. Just as you say, though, Angela, they don't want a nuclear exchange. They just want to keep the proxy war going. They need to find more meat, and they need to find more metal for their weapons and their vehicles and their ammunition. So this is what they're doing. And if they can freeze it and build out these capabilities, just like they did with Minsk 1 and Minsk 2, if they could do that with what is Minsk 3, whether they want to say it or not, or whether they want to pretend that it isn't, it is, that is what they're trying to do. Now, let's shift gears to China. I was just talking about this one right here. This is the second time Secretary Rubio has brought up these Uyghurs that were held here in Thailand, where I am based. These Uyghurs are part of a network of extremists that were brought out of China through Southeast Asia to Turkey. They crossed into Syria, where they were joining ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And this is according to The Economist and the Western media. and they are joining terrorist organizations, not because I call them terrorist organizations, because the U.S. itself, Marco Rubio's State Department, calls them terrorists. And so what he's doing is he's talking about China pressuring Thailand to send these Uyghur suspects back to China. This same network bombed Bangkok in 2015, a Buddhist shrine in downtown Bangkok, killing 20 people. A horrific terrorist attack. All of these people were 100% innocent. They were just ordinary people, tourists, and people just working, trying to make a living. And they killed these people. And so you don't have to pressure Thailand to send these people back to China. The problem is the U.S. is pressuring Thailand to allow these extremists to travel on, because what they're doing is there's already a U.S. war against China. It's already happening. It's been happening. It has transcended the Obama, Trump, Biden, and now second Trump administration. They have these extremist networks, including the Uyghurs, but also separatists in Baluchistan, separatists and terrorists in Myanmar who are attacking Chinese engineers, Chinese infrastructure, Belt and Road Initiative projects, and even attempting to kill Chinese diplomats as they're traveling to these different countries. And so that is already ongoing. It's just a matter of the U.S. slowly turning up the temperature, not too fast, just like you say, Angela. They don't want a direct confrontation. But what they are doing, this was a great post too. Let's take a look at this one. Remember President Trump accusing China of controlling the Panama Canal because there was a Hong Kong-based company that owned ports at either end of the canal. Well, BlackRock, the deep state, gave a phone call to President Trump and said, help us take over these ports. And so that's what he did. And so BlackRock takes over these ports. They coerce this company in Hong Kong to sell it. And the U.S. is literally doing what they're accusing China of doing, having these private companies that the government somehow is controlling and using to advance their foreign policy. That is literally what the Trump administration is doing hand in hand with BlackRock. So again, all of the signs are there of what Trump really is and what he is really doing, the continuity of agenda of it all. And Angelo, so what you had said earlier, the Panama Canal, what is it? It's a maritime choke point. Greenland, right there with the northern route, another choke point. They're already building up their military in the South China Sea, another choke point. That is what the U.S. is doing. They cannot fight China head on. They know that. So they're going to try to cut the Chinese economy off through maritime routes, through terrorism, attacking the Belt and Road Initiative over land, and by targeting, destabilizing, seizing, and controlling the Middle East, this source of hydrocarbons so essential for the Chinese economy. That is what is taking shape here. And all of these are just parts of the puzzle. Danny, go ahead. What has been on your radar in regards to the Trump administration vis-a-vis China?
Well, I hope people understand that everything you just said, Brian, really does reek of not only desperation, but waste. And all of this talk about peace through strength, if there isn't a reversal of these policies, the opposite of what Trump is actually doing, then what you actually get is not strength and definitely not peace. What you get is the United States literally taking a hammer under Trump to the global economy. Because, Brian, one thing you didn't mention also is tariffs. These tariffs that Trump conveniently kept on China, but continuously has avoided on everybody else he's threatened, right? He said, I'm going to tariff the EU. I'm going to tariff Canada. I'm going to tariff Mexico. Constantly takes them back because he knows if he places tariffs on every single sphere, both of U.S. influence and of China's influence, then what ends up happening is that the fragility, the already fragile, and Rasheed, you mentioned the debt, you mentioned BlackRock, Brian, we are talking about a fragile global financial system dominated by U.S.-led Wall Street institutions, which are literally hanging on by a thread of their fiat, completely an utterly wasteful money printing economy that all it does is reproduces money and wealth for itself. This entire military objective that the United States has with China is about preserving and strengthening that crippling and absolutely redundant and wasteful financial system. So that is what this is all about, as you said, Brian. And all of the politics, all of the atrocity propaganda that Rubio is trying to promote with the Uyghurs in Thailand is very ironic, given that, one, Uyghurs who do not want to go back to China if they are fighting in this terrorist area, because they would rightfully be brought to justice because of their connections to actual crimes that they are linked to and committed for over 15 plus years prior to 2016. That is what Rubio is actually afraid of. He doesn't want to see actual terrorists, people who are proxies, be brought to justice, because that would upend the entire U.S. foreign policy regime, which relies on forces like these to create chaos, and the chaos necessary to, as you said, Brian, thwart China's development process, China's influence worldwide, China's rise. This is what it's all about. But make no mistake, everyone should understand that this not only does it not work, but it's completely counterproductive to any kind of hope for a more peaceful world and for a world where there is more, as China says, common prosperity. All of this is about making the tiny few elites who head up this Wall Street regime more prosperous at the expense of everyone else. And that is what targeting China is really all about. China has a different model, a different path it is pursuing. All of Donald Trump's economic policies toward China, all of the fact sheets that he has released, his administration, is all about decoupling and trying to isolate China. And all that does is damage the U.S. economy further, because the U.S. Capitalist economy cannot sustain itself without trade and cooperation with China. But furthermore, by attempting to sever the world from China, the United States actually severs itself from the world. And that is what Donald Trump is actually accelerating. It's already backfiring. The U.S. economy is in complete and utter shambles right now. It will eventually backfire on the Trump administration politically once people start to get a whiff of this and the next election cycle comes up in less than 2 years. So this is all very much part of what is a crumbling empire, and one that is attempting to just kick and flail and do whatever it can, using all of the tools, economic, political, military, and otherwise, to keep itself standing up. But actually what's going to happen through all of this, because China, whether what they're doing in the South China Sea or the Panama Canal, China has no shortage of friends. It has no shortage of tools. It has all of the capacity to maneuver around, survive, and actually continue to thrive despite these conditions. It's going to be the United States that feels the pain from all of this first and foremost. And I hope that all of the people who said, oh, Trump is going to make America great again, he's doing peace through strength, everything is going to get better, we have so much hope for peace. I hope people understand that the consequences are already being felt, and they're only going to get more dire, and it's going to hit us far more than it's going to hit China, and it's going to create all kinds of problems worldwide, which people in the United States will be feeling very soon. So that is what I'm keeping my radar on, because truthfully, I'm not surprised. I believe that Donald Trump from the very beginning was always going to ratchet up on China. This is what he did in his first administration. Then Biden continued and escalated that. This is the ultimate objective. This is the existential crisis of the United States' time as a hegemon, as an empire. It sees China as almost a new Soviet Union, except this time China is stronger than the Soviet Union, far more balanced, far more capable, far more prosperous, and far more able to maneuver the international scene than what was occurring during the Cold War. So truthfully, China is seen as the graveyard of the United States as a world power, and it should be, because the United States can't maneuver under its current arrangement. People in the United States, though, should be asking the question, what do we need to do so we have an economic and political arrangement that doesn't see it this way? Because it doesn't need to be seen this way. It's truthfully not this way. China does not want to destroy the United States. China would be very happy for the United States to be prosperous and doing well on its own and to compete and to cooperate as a normal country. That is what we should be pursuing here. And Donald Trump is certainly not the answer. He's exactly the problem.
And well, I just want to bring up the tariffs. You mentioned tariffs. I believe that the tariffs really are just a way to decouple from China. They know it's going to destroy the U.S. economy. They don't care. And I think they understand that there is no graceful way to do this. They're going to have to burn everything down. And they hope that they'll be able to build more efficiently in the ashes than everybody else. They hope to knock out even more than they themselves will suffer. And Daddy, you were talking about this line that I hear a lot of Trump supporters using: peace through strength. The U.S. has not been at peace for a single day in the entire 21st century. Not even a single day has the U.S. been at peace with the rest of the world, including every single day of this second Trump administration. Peace through strength is just a way of rebranding American primacy around the globe. And people need to stop saying this. President Trump himself, even all of his rhetoric, if you just listen to it carefully, he's not talking about peace. He's talking about primacy. The U.S. will never, with this system, Danny, you're talking about the system in the United States. With this system in place, they will never pick peace over primacy. That was the first clue that Trump was lying to everybody during his campaign. The second clue was people like J.D. Vance just openly saying, well, we're not really interested in fighting this war in Ukraine. Dump it on the Europeans and let's go to war. We need these weapons to fight China. He literally said that. So I don't get where everybody got this idea that he wanted peace. He wants to make America strong at home so everyone leaves us alone. You got an ocean on both sides of either coast. There is nothing the U.S. actually has to worry about. So when they're talking about maintaining this military, building up their fleet, it's an admission that they want to continue military aggression all around the globe. And I just wanted to point this out because I have people saying, well, Brian, maybe the Uyghurs are extremists, but maybe that's because the Chinese are abusing them. There's no evidence at all. There isn't a single photo or video of China abusing the Uyghurs in China. The only evidence that exists of anyone torturing or killing Uyghurs is the United States. The U.S. admitted they were bombing them, carpet bombing them in Afghanistan. This is NBC News. U.S. targets Chinese Uyghur militants. They were carpet bombing them. Record-breaking bomb drops from a B-52. This is what they were bragging about back in 2018. And then they were torturing them in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, this U.S. base there. So every accusation against China is a confession by the United States. I think it's safe to say that. Let's go to Rasheed and then Angelo. Just some closing thoughts about this what we are watching right now. This, I would say, quicker than expected unraveling of this veneer of the peace president. He's going to undo everything the Biden administration does. And now we're just watching him double down on all of it. Rasheed and then Angelo.
Well, if he is the peace president and he is going to undo what Biden has done, then why has he strengthened the Federal Reserve with his policies that he's enacted? This is counterproductive to the hundreds of millions of people in America and around the globe to strengthen a private bank that makes policy for the United States. Also, I want to bring something up. You were talking about the hypocrisy of America. I want to go back to that for a minute. I want to bring something up that is absolutely in line with what you were saying. There's an article on RT, and they were talking about Trump launches powerful military action against the Houthis. And down in the article, it says, the president has also warned Iran against providing any support to the Yemeni-based group or threatening the U.S. Support for the Houthi terrorists must end immediately, he wrote, adding that the U.S. would otherwise hold Iran fully accountable, and we won't be nice about it. So America does not want anyone to be allied with anyone outside of her. She can give all of her allies missiles, bombs, planes, rockets, ships, and everything else. But you're not supposed to give your friend, your brother, your sister a rock or a slingshot to defend themselves. And if you do, then this is in violation, and that because it's an affront to American hegemony and supremacy, then we have the right to bomb or interdict. Russia could use that same logic against NATO and the United States. China could use that same logic against the United States with the Senkaku or the Diaoyu Islands and Taiwan. So this is that, again, this is that exceptional mind state. And when we're talking about Donald Trump and the unraveling of the empire, I think a lot of people miss this part too. They think that Trump is cleaning out government and he's reducing big government, and they don't realize that he is removing any obstacle to war. If you look at all of the different positions and all of the different areas of government, he is putting into place people who will back him regardless. And I believe that this is a precursor to war, because if we look at the economic situation, as I go back to, and it's unraveling at breakneck speed. If you have a defense secretary that is gung-ho, that is a crusader and all of this, and then you put these other people in position that you know that are pro-Trump, pro-MAGA, then when the people riot in the streets, they will have your back to suppress the masses so that you continue on your war escapades to try to maintain hegemony, even against the will of your own people. This is a sign of approaching dictatorship in a certain term. And I think that gets missed when people are talking too, because they are not looking at the economics of it. You got to go back. Without the economics, you can't see the clearer picture. Think about 37 trillion in debt. Your deficit spending. You have at least $666 trillion in debt. And you have a $5 to $7 quadrillion derivative market. You're not producing anything but dollars, movies, and weapons that don't work. You cannot compete with Vietnam. You cannot compete with China. You cannot compete in Asia. And now you cannot even compete with some of Africa, because Africa has become a manufacturing hub for China. So when you're looking at the landscape of things and everything that you once dominated in, you're no longer dominating in, and you're the ship that continues to take on debt. And you don't think rational, because death awaits you. And so what you're doing, instead of getting the life jacket on, you're putting the bell around your neck and jumping in the water, sinking. And that's what the American government is doing right now. And I don't think that people are realizing that Trump is setting this up strategically. He talks a lot, but look at his moves with the people that he's putting in strategic places, so that if the economy collapses before he gets to China, he'll have the people there to suppress the masses. Or if the people rise up as they push for global war and as they push for war after war after war, he has the people there to suppress the people. And he is undoing the educational system. God forbid, they do need to do something with the educational system, but not in the manner that he's doing. He just fired people from the public broadcasting with America funds, so he's putting in more people. This is to push his narrative and his agenda. And I'm not anti-Trump. I'm not pro-Trump. I'm apolitical. And I think anybody who's seen my shows know that I was this hard against Obama and Biden too. But I'm going to call an ace and a spade. And I believe that this has all the makings of fascist dictatorial government ahead, because when the economy collapses, it's going to be deadly. Gregory Mannarino says that the debt burden will be almost as if a nuclear bomb exploded, and it will cause the mass loss of life. And I think they're preparing for that, because just like you and I know, just like Danny knows, just like Angelo knows, they have inside figures that we didn't see. And so no matter how bad we think it is, they have information to know that it's worse than what we think it is. So they're putting everything position for the eventual wars and the eventual economic collapse. And I think that this will be the unraveling of America. And I have to say this one last thing. With the government doing what they're doing, antagonizing nation after nation, it seems to me common sense says stop the antagonizing of the nations, because if you stop, maybe in your downfall, the people will have compassion and pity on you. But the more you antagonize people, the more they're going to wish and hope for, and then have joy in your downfall. And I think that because of the exceptionalism, the leadership can't see that, and I believe that this will be another reason for the fall of the American empire.
One thing real quick, Danny, you said at the 1 hour mark, are you still okay?
Yeah, I can stay for about another 10, 15 minutes.
Okay, all right. I just want to, because Rasheed brought up a really important point. This is what I hear all the time. But Brian, Trump destroyed USAID. He got rid of NED. Look, he just annihilated Voice of America. No, he didn't. I warned people about this. I warned them about Doge. I said, this is not about dismantling anything. This is about streamlining and sharpening it. And that is exactly what Secretary of State Marco Rubio said. He said, we didn't get rid of USAID. We cut off all the fat. We still got 1,000 programs that we are going to fund, and we're going to put it right under the State Department. Just like you said, Rasheed, they're consolidating control over it. They're making these tools easier to wield, streamlining them, sharpening them, making them easier to wield. So that doesn't really sound at all like dismantling anything to me. I mean, literally, there's 1,000 programs they admit are still operational right now. And I was warning people because I'm tracking specific organizations here in Southeast Asia. None of them, not even one of them, was disrupted by all of these supposed funding freezes. They are still all operational. They were still organizing protests in the street to destabilize things here. They're still backing a vicious war in Myanmar to divide and destroy that country like they did Libya and Syria. And so no, they're not dismantling anything. And it's extremely dangerous for people out there to buy into this and to continuously repeat it when it is demonstrably not true. Right here, 5,200 programs out of 6,200. If you do the math, it's 1,000 programs still operational. Do you think all of those 1,000 programs are just humanitarian programs? Because USAID was created specifically to interfere abroad. There are no humanitarian programs. Even the ones that look humanitarian are designed to influence, coerce, and control. Angelo, what are your thoughts on this? Some closing thoughts, and then we will do questions. And knowing that if you don't want to stick around, it's okay. I could do the questions, no problem. Angelo,
I can manage another 10, 15 minutes. There's so many very interesting topics. I would advise people to check the video that Danny did with Michael Hudson when you want to look at the US dollar hegemony. It's a very important topic. That's the center. It's all about the money. And when you look at the collapsing of empire, that's where they're holding these onto power is by having their currency and by having a strong army. And when you look at throughout history, the British Empire was exactly the same. They imposed upon the world the currency. Now, going back to what Rasheed said, it's really important. I'm not also ideologically driven, but when you look at what the internal politics they're doing in the US is all about also divided and control thing. So you end up having people actually are worshipping the elites, the 1%. And the real enemies, people. It's very interesting to see like people, they are for the US empire. The MAGA, they actually back the US empire because they do think that this is going to make America stronger and the American people stronger too. And what they don't realize that the biggest enemies they have, because it's a class struggle, is the 1%. So what China has, India has, and Russia has as an enemy is the same as American people have as an enemy, is the oligarch. And now going back to internal politics, it's important people don't see the full picture. They are selective on what they want to see. There is some saving, of course, there was some waste, but ultimately this is a power grab. It's a power grab, but at the same time, when you look at Doge is a project to actually get, hold onto those, onto everything. I mean, this is it's a dystopian. They are going to build up a dystopian society, and ultimately, it's about privatization. When you are talking about privatization, those are state-owned assets, and they are who's going to take advantage of that? It's all the oligarch. And when you look at the background of those people, there's Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel, he was funded by the CIA. Palantir was funded by the CIA. He's behind Zuckerberg. He was the first investor of Zuckerberg. And he's the co-founder of PayPal with Elon Musk. Elon Musk, military-industrial complex. And this is what people are cheering for. It's never been so much the billionaires in charge. And what I look average Joe, blue collar, who's starving, and is actually cherishing billionaires. It's just absurd. But the problem is that it's how they present the narrative and how much people don't do their homework. They don't realize that actually this is a power grab, and it's going to be extremely aggressive. We are talking about, now with the AI and with all those big tech joining forces together, it's over. It is over. There's not much you can do. And in reality, what American people should do is really doing introspections and not fighting, supporting those. I mean, I see those MAGA being proud. Oh, we have a strong military. We need to use, well, no. The people that are leading you towards war are going to use you as a cannon fodder, and it is going to come out of your pocket, and they are going to be richer. And you can look at every time all those leaders, in the US, they get into power, either in the Congress or as president, they become much richer. And they say, oh, well, Trump, he could be playing golf and he could be retiring and so on. But guess what? What has he done that has made him much
Told you to walk away. That was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a